Welcome in everybody to the second video in my 2024 Rookie Prospect Profile series. Today we're looking at my Rookie 1.02 in one quarterback leagues and 1.04 in Superflex leagues, Malik Nabers out of LSU, who in just about every other draft class would be the rookie wide receiver one. He just unfortunately is paired with Marvin Harrison Jr. this year. But taking a look at Nabers' college career, he joined LSU in 2021 and was in a big mess of wide receivers like Kayshon Boutte, Trey Palmer, Brian Thomas Jr., a couple other wide receivers on just a really bad offense. But he did manage some production with over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns on 28 receptions. In 2022, as a sophomore, his production spiked significantly over Kayshon Boutte and Brian Thomas Jr. to the tune of over 1,000 yards and 3 touchdowns on 72 receptions in Jayden Daniels' first year with the Tigers after transferring from Arizona State. And then in 2023, now that Jayden Daniels has gotten settled into the LSU offense, Nabers just exploded with a monster season, almost 1,600 receiving yards, 14 receiving touchdowns on 89 receptions, averaging a whopping 25.5 fantasy points per game, which is the second best mark in the entire class and the 5th best mark among all first-round receivers since 2018. He was a monster all season, everywhere on the field, with 85 or more yards in all but 2 games, 120 yards in 8 games, and multiple touchdown games in 5 out of the 13 games played. So let's dive into the analytics, and if you've watched these videos before or you watched my video on Marvin Harrison Jr. this year, you may be familiar with my marker system, which is simply a series of checkboxes or baselines that I want players to hit based on what previously successful receivers did coming out of college. And at the wide receiver position, I have 16 markers that are checking for various production and athleticism metrics with a final adjustment at the end based on draft capital. And currently, Malik Nabers is actually grading out as the wide receiver one in this class with 10 total markers hit. And that is without any combine testing at all. Assuming that Malik Nabers runs a sub 4.5 at his pro day in April, which I have absolutely zero concerns about him being able to do, he will then go to 13 markers hit. And then when he's drafted in the first round on draft night, then that'll take him to 14 markers total, joining a very select group of first round wide receivers to hit 14 or more markers, including guys like DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, Brandon Cooks, Calvin Johnson, and Larry Fitzgerald. And all of that is backed up by his tape. Nabers is an absolutely amazing wide receiver. He is a great route runner who can win at all levels on the field, outside or in the slot. He has incredible speed and timing during his routes, and then he has the acceleration and burners to deal some serious damage after the catch. He also has this amazing level of agility and contact balance to break tackles in the open field as a runner as well. And even though he's not the tallest or biggest dude in this class, he has a tremendous ability to make contested catches or body control catches along the sideline, and where he really is just a quarterback's best friend that they just need to throw it up to him and he's going to go up and get it and make something happen. I think the only knock that I've seen on Nabers comes from his slot production, as generally heavy slot usage in college results to heavier slot usage in the NFL, which usually is not great for elite fantasy upside, and it could be an indicator of a lack of something as a wide receiver. Either it's speed, it's route running, it's an ability to get off of press, or something like that. And Scott Barrett actually did a massive data dump recently highlighting all of this for Nabers, showing that he had the most fantasy points per game from deep slot targets among first and second round receivers since 2019, which is a list that has not been very kind to players in the NFL. He also showed the difference in fantasy points per game when removing deep slot production and screens from 2023 production, where Nabers drops from first in the NCAA this past year down to 19th. Now, this isn't damning to Nabers' profile at all. It just means that LSU prioritized manufacturing touches for Nabers by creating big mismatches against either bad slot corners or even linebackers, which is not a bad thing when you think about it. To identify Malik Nabers as the best player on your offense and then purposely find ways to get him the ball, I mean, that's just football, really, but it is a data point. It is something that I think is worth mentioning because it could be a factor in terms of either usage for Malik Nabers or his overall upside in the NFL that maybe we're not totally factoring in here outside of him just being the immediate wide receiver 2 in this class. I will add though that there are success stories of heavier slot production in college and then being very elite in the NFL. Justin Jefferson almost exclusively played in the slot in 2019, while Jamar Chase played almost exclusively on the outside. That turned out pretty okay for Justin Jefferson. A.J. Brown played nearly 60% of his snaps from the slot in his final year. He's kind of good in the NFL. Cooper Kupp, 84% slot usage in his final season, also kind of good in the NFL. And then we have Stephon Diggs, my actual NFL comparison for Malik Nabers. Stephon Diggs, 82% usage from the slot in his final season. So I'm really not all that concerned about Nabers' slot fades all over his tape. What I see on film and what I see on paper is an excellent wide receiver who will be an elite alpha at the NFL level. The only thing that's really left to complete this puzzle is landing spot, which I feel like we've all basically penciled him in now at the Chargers pick at 5 overall after all of their moves recently, which if that were to actually happen, where Nabers is the immediate wide receiver 1 with zero competition for targets, with Justin Herbert at quarterback, even in a Harbaugh and Greg Roman offense that makes him throw less than usual, I mean, that's still enough juice for a Justin Jefferson level of rookie season. I'm talking 85 or more receptions, 1,400 yards, over a handful of touchdowns. Nabers on the LA Chargers would be enough for me to consider him at 1.03 in Superflex leagues behind only Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, if he slides past the Chargers, let's say in the event that Arizona trades out, 4 quarterbacks go in a row, and then the Chargers actually end up taking Marvin Harrison, then Nabers' fantasy value starts to waver a little bit depending on where he goes. If he lands on the New York Giants at 6 overall, I don't really have a major issue with that because he'll be the immediate wide receiver 1 on the team in a Brian Dable offense who knew how to use Stephon Diggs in Buffalo, so I'm sure he's going to know how to use Malik Nabers in New York. Daniel Jones at quarterback isn't really great for upside, I understand that, but 130 plus targets on day 1 is good enough for me in Dynasty. He's still a top 5 pick on the Giants. And then I think we can write off the Titans and the Bears to draft receivers in the top 10 after free agency and trade. So the only other options in the top 10 of the NFL draft this year are the Falcons and the Jets, where he would be the wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 1B in either offense, which, yeah, doesn't really feel great, but I would take the wide receiver 2 for Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins over a lot of other receivers in the league. So he would still be a top 5 rookie pick for me in Superflex and still be the 1.02 and 1 quarterback. He's still a great pick, but just maybe not the immediate wide receiver 1 ceiling on either one of those teams. And then finally, if he is somehow in Arizona, either they take him at 4 overall or they trade back and he's there for them later, then that is another amazing landing spot that rivals the LA Chargers, and I would consider him again at 1.03 in Superflex if he were to land with the Arizona Cardinals. I think the only other thing that I'll say on Nabers is that there is a very realistic world where he is the best receiver from this class for fantasy football. It's actually an argument that I made in a recent video on this channel, which you guys can check out right up here.